Today on Facing Life Head On, we've heard about the thousands of human embryos left over from in vitro fertilization, now in frozen storage across the country. But did you know more people are using this technology to adopt embryos and raise them as their own? Join us as we hear the personal stories of those involved in embryo adoption. Couples struggling with infertility often pursue in vitro fertilization. Multiple eggs are harvested from a woman's ovaries, fertilized in a lab, and frozen until implanted in the womb. With high success rates, often from even the first try, the procedure creates an ethical dilemma when many couples wonder what to do with extra, unused embryos. We met Lisa in Cincinnati, Ohio. After giving birth to twin daughters, Lisa and her husband still had 7 extra embryos frozen in storage. Many families like theirs are given only 3 options: pay an annual fee to keep storing the embryos, donate them to research, or allow the clinic to kill them. But for Lisa, her extra embryos were more than potential life. They were life with potential. So she set out to find another option.
We didn't like the, other 3 options. Putting them up to donation for science, it's an option, but to us they were still in a way destroyed, or just destroying them in general. We didn't like that option because obviously we have 2 beautiful children that we were looking at and couldn't see destroying the embryos. And then keeping them, which somewhat financially at the time, we really couldn't afford the storage fees, and also couldn't see ourselves using them, if ever, and we didn't want to keep them forever. So I started looking around on the internet and I ran across embryo adoption, and the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, that's perfect. You know, we get to help another couple who doesn't have children and would love to have another child or children. So, and that's really what we wanted, was life for our embryos. So that's what we decided to do.
Lisa turned to Bonnie Bernard, founder of Embryos Alive. It is one of only a few agencies specializing in embryo adoption.
It's pretty much just like a traditional adoption. We have a donor that would call in, and she, they don't understand all the options that they have to donate, so we explain to them they can choose open agency liaison or closed adoption, and then they can tell us their profile, height and weight, hair color and eye color. Then they just, like all kinds of descriptions about themselves. And they can tell what kind of family that they would pick. Would they want married or single? Would they want an older couple? Would they be open to somebody that's up to 60? Do they want people with no kids? Or would they be okay if they had 3 kids?
What were your requirements for the adoptive parents?
Well, they had to be married. We wanted them to at least somewhat exhaust all of their options to know that they could definitely not have their own biological child. We wanted them to agree with some form of communication, either via phone, mail, email, some form of notification of at least a pregnancy, the birth, and to share photos with us at least once a year. Live communication, being able to meet the child, that could develop, as we felt comfortable, but on paper we have it set for at least one time a year communication, either mail, phone, email, and a picture.
Both couples do have to agree, and they communicate through us until both families feel like, yes, this is the right family for us.
Picking the family, that happened within just about 1 to 2 months, and then it was just paperwork and waiting for them to complete all of the requirements.
Now, what goes through your mind when you think about the parents?
They're wonderful parents. They love the little boy to death. they're great people. I know they're going to be wonderful parents for him. You know, we handpicked them, so out of many. So I know they're very blessed, and so are we to have, I guess, them raising our genetic child. But they're, you know, raising their child. We just knew, we knew in our hearts that it was the right thing to do. We didn't believe in destroying the embryos. We didn't think that was an option. We wanted, you know, like I had stated before, we want other families to have the option of raising a child and to feel the pregnancy and to give birth to a child. That's just an amazing experience. It just felt very right for us. You know, we see what the embryos are, a little tiny microscopic egg to becoming a live, you know, breathing child and kicking and screaming, and you know, so we know that those embryos can be life, and that's what we wanted, them to at least have the chance.
When we return, we meet Joshua, a little boy who was adopted while still an embryo.
Thank you for inviting us into your home. Each week we feature real people who deal with real-life issues head-on. Some of their experiences are uplifting, while others will break your heart. But in the end, the message is clear. Those who follow biblical principles on the issues of life are blessed. Become a partner with us in providing a positive, life-affirming message to help change the way the next generation values innocent human life. Please consider a generous gift to help offset the costs of producing this important quality programming. You can donate on our secure website at facinglife.tv or by calling the phone number on your screen during normal business hours. Together, we can make a real difference for life.
Earlier, we met Lisa, a mom who had to decide what to do with 7 leftover embryos still in storage after fertility treatments resulted in the birth of twins. There are almost 500,000 frozen embryos stored in clinics around the nation. Their families now complete, many parents like Lisa are opting to place these preborn children for adoption. We visited Cincinnati's Institute for Reproductive Health, where we met Dr. Michael Scheiber. Dr. Scheiber says most patients who undergo fertility treatments don't have leftover embryos, but the ones who do should know that there are other couples eager to give those embryos life. What draws your patients to this unique adoption process?
There's a lot of couples for whom generating their own eggs or their own healthy embryos is simply not a good option. But the nice thing about embryo adoption for a couple is that you know, the woman still goes through the gestational relationship with the baby. And I think any woman that's been pregnant can tell you that that's you know, more than just something that we talk about on paper. I mean, that's a very real relationship that develops. And for a lot of couples, it's very reassuring for them to know that they're in charge of their prenatal care. There's a lot of you know, bonuses there for adoptive couples.
Gary and Rhonda Hubbard are parents of little Joshua, who was born through embryo adoption. They are now expecting another baby, a biological sibling conceived from the same batch of embryos as Joshua.
Truly, again, it was miraculous because we didn't even know the complete background of the embryos until we had already agreed. And we got the paperwork in the mail, and across the top of one of the biological donors it said Swedish, German, and English, and that's our background. Really? And that was, it was already planned and finalized and such at that point.
Tell me what it was like when you got the call that you were pregnant.
We were thrilled. I had heard so many people, even with in vitro, that it's not successful that first time, and so we were very, very excited. I miscarried a few weeks later, and so the second time around I was a little bit more tentative, but still excited, amazed that it works.
So from the point on of a successful implantation, the woman has a normal pregnancy?
Yes, you know, hopefully that's the outcome. The first several weeks, because the woman's ovaries herself have not contributed to the hormonal environment involved with the pregnancy as would happen in a natural situation, we need to give hormonal supplementation to the pregnancy until the placenta can take over. And the placenta usually takes over manufacturing the hormones at about 8 to 10 weeks of pregnancy. So for the first 6 or 8 weeks, the women tend to be on estrogen and progesterone supplementation to help support the embryos until the placenta can take over. Following that stage of the game, most patients go on to have a very successful, very healthy pregnancy. You can usually return to their regular obstetrician for routine care, and everything typically goes very smoothly after that.
So what was it like then when little Joshua was born?
He was just so cute, and just that was exciting. Again, as a not knowing what the child might look like, those things, especially for me, went through my mind.
So what are the benefits you think of embryo adoption?
For me, it was neat because it was anonymous, and I always had the fear. Gary was a lot more open to adoption. It took some getting used to for me, because I think I just was afraid of that bond and of a child being taken back to their biological parents. And so in this situation, there's a different bond when you're bearing the child. And so that fear was taken away from me. And just, I had always dreamed since the time I was a little girl to have a child. So when I didn't think that was an option, I was amazed to come full circle and then get to actually go through that pregnancy.
Well, what would have happened to the embryos if you hadn't adopted them?
It's a scary thought. It is a scary thought. It's scary every time, and I'm going to try not to get emotional. Every time you look at him and think, this little miracle could have just been thrown away. So
there are 3 options. There's adoption, there's just destruction of life, or destruction of life for the purpose of research.
Yet embryonic stem cell research has provided no cures and no treatments. So parents like Gary and Rhonda are encouraging people to instead focus on adult and cord blood stem cell research. Both have proven enormously successful, and neither takes the life of a preborn baby.
There's so much in the press now about research, and they don't distinguish between embryonic and regular adult stem cell or even umbilical cord. And so people need to know there is a difference, and there are lives at stake. When you look at Joshua and you see him smile and you see him talk and you see just every little detail about him, it would devastate me to think that we could so quickly just think that that could be a research project.
When we return, the parents decide how to tell their children about their unusual beginnings.
We're not sure what to do.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
Earlier, we met Dr. Michael Scheiber, a fertility specialist, who says embryo adoption provides a number of benefits. Adoptive couples are at a financial advantage because the high-tech process of harvesting and fertilizing eggs has already taken place. And though Dr. Scheiber says there are no guarantees, The odds of getting embryos that will successfully implant are good.
Fortunately, in the cases where we do have cryopreserved embryos, those are usually from couples that have conceived already. And so it's what we call a good, a cohort or a batch of embryos that develops together. And so those pregnancies or those people undergoing a embryo transfer with cryopreserved or frozen embryos from a cycle in which a conception already occurred will actually have a better chance compared to some other cycles, because we know that those will be high quality embryos.
The national statistics are 40% chance that they'll thaw and 50% chance that they'll stick.
It could end in a miscarriage, but I guess that any pregnancy could. And well, for Gary and I, when we were pursuing adoption, and a lot of men look at the logic behind it, we're guaranteed a child when we go through domestic or foreign adoption. When we go through embryo adoption, that guarantee is not there. However, again, it's a life, and especially for a female, the opportunity to be pregnant and bear that child far outweighs. So for me, I thought, you're crazy. I don't care about the guarantee. But the reality is you do have to be able to understand that there is a risk. There's a possibility that it would be unsuccessful.
It's not known exactly how many children are born through embryo adoptions. One California agency reports it alone has overseen several hundred. Bonnie Bernard says she anticipates the parents involved will continue to deal with a number of concerns.
Some of the concerns that families have presented when they're donating and adopting, one of them might be if they're going to meet later on, if they've decided to do like an anonymous adoption, what would happen if they go to college and they wind up meeting and getting married? So I'm an advocate for the open option so that everybody's comfortable, that it's not like a surprise later on. And another concern has been for health. We had, for instance, a situation with egg donor sperm, donor egg, and there was a child born. So the donor was concerned if she gave them for the adoption, she wanted the cord blood back so that in case her child ever became sick, she would be able to have a genetic match. So there are those issues about